Sherry, I'm so happy to talk to you today. It seems sort of the perfect day to talk about what we want to talk about today. That is just being, letting go of everything and just being in the moment and processing whatever needs to be processed. And I'm so excited to hand it over to you straight away because really this is what you do and what you teach so well. So tell us a little bit about you and tell us how you practice this letting go.
Great. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. It's always just such an honor to be with you, Stephanie. Um, my name is Sherry Sidoti, and I have been practicing and teaching yoga and meditation for about 20 years now. I have a school on Martha's Vineyard where I live, where I train teachers. And I also have a community outreach program where we offer yoga and meditation to those who cannot make it to a yoga studio for various reasons. And um, and then in addition to that, I am a writer and I'm in the process of writing and editing a book, which will be published next August in 2023.
I cannot wait to read that, Sherry. Tell us a little bit about, do you want to talk about the book quickly, what it's about? And then we'll jump right in and sort of try and get sort of practical steps to help people to get into this notion of just being and being okay with that.
Yeah, sure. Just a little bit about the book. It's a memoir, and it is kind of layering in the various processes of healing that were personal to me in my life journey, but I think are universal healing practices that can be, taken and support anyone on their healing journey. And particularly, I'm looking at some of the things that we, as born as in a woman's body, and living our life throughout the course of our life as women, what we contend with both internally and then externally, and how we can heal from the myriad of internalized and externalized hatred towards femininity, and recover and recreate a new earth that we can live on as that's safe and whole and healing as a woman. So that's kind of what the book is about. And I haven't yet found my little blurb for it, but that's, in a nutshell. And so much of the book, we were talking about this earlier, so much of the process of writing this book has actually encouraged me, forced me, and even like thrown me into the practices that I have, learned about from my teachers, that I have taught over the course of the 20 years, and that I really had to apply and put into practice while writing the book. There's many stages of healing that happen, particularly I think in writing a memoir. One being, having had the experience that I had, and those healing experiences that came in a myriad of forms, often informal, often unexpected, right? At times that I was not attempting to heal, or practicing it. And then the process of writing the book the past year and a half was another kind of level of digestion of the practices and what came from them. And then now I'm in the editing phase, and it's yet a third round of healing. So what I'm remembering, or what I'm reminded of in this journey, is that healing happens bit by bit, and only relative to the healing that came before it. So, I think that I have had the expectation throughout the course of my life in various moments, as well as, by listening to other people's healing journeys, or even by reading other people's books, is that healing we have a rock bottom, and then healing comes like a bolt of lightning, and all of a sudden we have clarity about all things. That has not been my experience. My experience has been a slow and steady rubbing of the coal into the diamond. My experience has been that I can only heal in any given moment relative to where I've already come from and what healing has already happened before it. So I cannot heal everything at once. And writing and editing is teaching me that I'm still in the process, that it's not something that's ever achieved or accomplished, but an ongoing practice, just like yoga is, right? It's an ongoing practice. And a huge part of that is, what you and I have been considering, which is this idea of just being. And just being is actually slightly different than letting things go, because just being is cultivating a sense of compassionate attention to what is present. And so we're not necessarily wanting to get rid of anything. What we're cultivating a practice towards is being with what is here right now. And what I find for what can be more useful in my personal journey of healing and ultimately letting things go, right, is to stay in the place of letting versus letting it go. And in that place of letting, I'm cultivating presence. And in presence, I'm helping my nervous system to switch from maybe that sympathetic fight or flight response that I may have to my experience, and or that active parasympathetic of freeze or fawn. And so the practices help us to just simply be more in a state of rest and digest, or perhaps acceptance. And in the place of acceptance is when the things that I want to go, those things usually with attention and care and presence will go when they're ready, right? But I can't force anything out of my body, right? Of my memory or of my body or of my personal experience. I can't force it out. I have to stay with it until it's ready to go. And, we can do so. There's so many different practices available to us, very simple, doable practices that are available to us to cultivate that compassionate attention in any given moment, even in the middle of a conversation, even in the middle of driving, right? Or whatever regular life stuff we're doing. So in my teaching, it's really important for me to encourage us to not have to set apart separate time for being with, or to have to distinguish when we're in our day-to-day stuff and when we're in our spiritual awareness, that the two must coexist all the time. And in that space of coexistence, we come together as whole, right? As a whole person. Because truly, I feel that one of our greatest sources of suffering is when our outside life and our inner landscape don't meet and merge and match, right? So when we feel one way in the inside, but we're living outwardly and it looks and feels very different, that creates a disparity that's very challenging for us to live with. And so we want to force or push stuff away because it doesn't feel good to not be in right relation with our inner and outer world. And in that process, we want to get to some other place, or we want to go back to some former place instead of being where we are, right? So really simple practices, and there are, like I said, there are hundreds, but maybe I'll just mention a few. One is just the very simple practice of grounding and orienting. So grounding and orienting is as simple as noticing what's touching the floor, reminding ourselves that underneath the floor or the ground or the shoes that we're in is the earth, and that the earth also rises to meet us, to support us. So just a simple grounding. I am on the earth. This is where I am, right? And with that said, orienting comes as part of the grounding. So once we realize, I'm on the earth is holding me, I'm held, I'm not alone here, right? Then we can take a moment to just notice the space that we're in, the physical space, right? If we're in a room, notice the room we're in. If we're outdoors, notice the environment that we're in, and take it in and be acutely specific about what's surrounding us. Like right now for me, I'm sitting in my yoga space. There's light coming in from the windows. There's a lamp above my head. There are plants with me in this space. And physically, you may take your eyes or your head and just look around the space. That will help to orient us to where we are. Another thing that's nice to do when we're orienting is to notice something that we haven't yet noticed in this, before this moment. So it may be something as simple as, I noticed that the numbers on my digital clock are flashing. I'm not sure if that happened overnight or when that happened, but I'm just noticing that new thing in my physical space right now, right? Then we want to take that grounding, right? I'm on earth, I'm in this physical space, and we want to begin to go inward a little bit more to our own experience. And this can be, we can do so with what's called 5 sense awareness, and just check in with all 5 of our senses, right? So we already checked in with sight. This is where I am, right? Then we want to notice any smells in the room, the taste in our mouth, the feeling of our material, of our clothing on our skin, right? We want to notice any sounds that we hear in our space. And that 5 sense awareness will take us from whatever's happening in our life right into our own body. Then we can track sensation, right? So once we kind of go through the 5 senses, we can pick one. We can pick a physical sensation in our body, or maybe a mood, or kind of a feeling. And we want to get curious about it. And so we may ask, what is it that I feel, right? Oh, I feel a tug in my chest, right? Then we might want to ask ourselves, what does that feeling really feel like? Or you might even say, oh, I feel sad. Okay, where does that sadness live in the body? What does it feel like? So my answer may be, at the beginning, I'm sad. And I may say, the sadness I feel in my chest. The sadness in my chest feels like a bowling ball weight. It's heavy and it's cold, right? Temperature is always a really good tracking system. And so then from there, you might just say, okay, that's a feeling I'm having, not an experience I'm having. It's a feeling, or it's an experience of myself that I'm having. It's not fixed and unmovable, right? So I'm sad can start to turn into, I feel like there's a cold or a cool bowling ball feeling in my chest. And to me, that feeling feels like sadness, right? So we're giving ourselves an opportunity to have a new relationship, or to re-identify with an emotion, because emotion is just energy in motion, and feelings want to move, right? They don't want to be stuck in our bodies. And so we have to help that process, right? We may want to then, if we still, are in the process of it, can stay present. We may want to pendulate. So pendulation helps us to kind of build resilience in our nervous system. And it simply means going internal in that tracking system and being able to go back and forth between something that we may equate as a negative feeling to something that feels right, or something that feels correct. And we don't have to stay at the correct. We can oscillate or pendulate from, say that bowling ball sadness feeling to my shoulders feel light, for example, or whatever it might be. Even noticing what isn't bringing our attention to internally, because that usually means that it's something that feels correct or is going well, right? So to over time, to build the resilience of just being with something, it's very useful to pendulate between something that doesn't feel great to something that feels better or feels right, back to the thing that doesn't feel great, back to the thing that feels right, and just kind of let ourselves flow. This is like building our nervous system muscle so that when we are in our life and we're in some moment of panic, or where we want to argue, or where there's the feeling of freezing and kind of disappearing and losing ourselves, that we've already built that muscle of being able to oscillate or pendulate between, okay, this feels sucky, this feels good, this feels sucky, this feels good. And what we're doing is we're going from sympathetic to parasympathetic and kind of riding the wave. And then, really any of these kind of practices can be done together or apart. They can be standalone. So if I'm having a moment, I can just simply feel my feet on the floor, take a few breaths in, and I can even say to myself, where am I? Who am I? And what am I doing? And try to answer it as literally as possible. Like, I am Sherry. I'm standing in my yoga room and I'm talking with Stephanie, right? Be as literal as possible. And, or, if we're in a moment that is challenging, where we find that we want to escape and dart into the future or run back into the past, we can do that orienting exercise. Just look around the space, right? Take in something that we didn't yet notice in the past few minutes and just be with that, right? Then another time we can go inward and do that 5 sense awareness. And then from the 5 senses, even go a little further and track feeling or track what's happening inside.
Sherry, I think this was the most beautiful explanation and little how-to to help someone when they're a moment of panic or anxiety or stress or losing oneself or not knowing exactly what the next step should be, or anger or frustration. So I think you covered it so beautifully. I don't think there's anything else to add. Apart from obvious
Thank you.
encouraging everyone to buy the book when it's out, to really dive really deep. As you said, this is just one way of doing it. And I think it's really good for everyone to explore all the other tools.
Thank you so much. I hope it can be helpful.
Yes, so helpful. Thank you so much, Sherry.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.